Every customer you have is depending on you guys to do this right.
State officials push for answers as Duke Energy prepares for winter. And today, South Carolina's Public Service Commission questioned company executives about the events leading up to last year's rolling outages during Winter Storm Elliott. Now, a state report revealed underestimating demand for power and equipment failures left more than 90,000 South Carolina customers in the dark on Christmas Eve last year.
Fox Carolina's investigative reporter Grace Runkle joins us live in studio with how Duke says they'll keep it from happening again. Grace?
Well, representatives for Duke told the Public Service Commission they've already implemented changes as they prepare for this winter. Those include starting drills with employees because part of the problem last winter was a key piece of software malfunctioned. It was supposed to automatically rotate where the rolling outages happened and ensure that the outages only lasted 15 to 30 minutes. When the software failed, workers had to restore power by hand. The drills will give the employees the opportunity to run through the situation both ways should the system crash happen again. One commissioner asked Duke if the company got complacent last year. After all, he said the record low temperatures were predicted days in advance.
It just shouldn't have caught anyone by surprise.
I think we have definitely embraced a fool me once kind of philosophy. We will not let this happen again. And we've added the parameters we know that were unknown to the market, to the models before.
Duke did not address how they would better communicate with residential customers. That was one of the issues that the state pointed out in its report. The commission is also in the middle of deciding whether or not to approve a rate increase for Duke customers. If approved, the average home electricity bill would go up about $9 each month starting on November 1st. Live in the studio, Grace Runkle, Fox Carolina News.